Hey YouTube. So the last video I did was to put those two fan connectors back in that are down here, and then now here goes the top back on, which goes on pretty easy. Flip it over. I'm going to put the front bezel back in place, which isn't too hard to do. So it's got writing on one side and it's also slightly offset in the thickness. Otherwise, from side to side it's a mirror image. Anyway, the labeling goes on the bottom, not on the top. So lift up the front edge a little bit, slip this over the connectors, and drop it in place. And then the back piece, it will literally drop in place. Pretty easy. So these two front screw holes here are really deep, and my jeweler screwdriver, which is only about 1.5 inches long, that's about all further we'll go, won't go down in those holes. So if you want to take one of these things apart and put it back together again, you're going to need something. Whoops, I screwed up already. You take that back off. So the thing I forgot to do was right here, and same thing on the other side, are these two shorter screws that go in, and they hold the board to the top. Because really what you're supposed to do is take the bottom off of this controller, or this charger rather, and then the top will come loose once you take off those two screws and that little pain in the neck ribbon cable. Alright, those two screws are in, and then again, as the bottom drops in place, and put the screws in. So my my bad idea here, since I'm using small tools to do this, rather than finding a longer screwdriver that'll fit down these holes, so this is a number 2 screwdriver, but you know, it's obviously a much smaller shaft, and somewhere or another I've got a number 2 screwdriver that's fairly skinny that'll fit down these holes, but I can't find it at the moment. So instead, I'm going to cheat and use a standard tip but long enough pocket screwdriver, and there we go. Yeah, one thing you don't want to do with plastic is double thread things, you know, as you're screwing in your screws, like that one I'm trying to do it. There we go. If you just start screwing in, there's a fairly good chance that you'll cut new threads in the plastic, in which case you've just completely buggered the works inside there. So run your screwdriver backwards a little bit and feel where the thread of the screw is going to thread in the plastic, and then you're good to go, and you'll only cut the single set of threads that are in there from the factory. Alright, so you can see all that heat sinking up inside here, and of course that heat sink goes all the way back to here too. I mean, it's in there everywhere. And the fans, which are, yeah, there we go, that's showing up pretty good. So they're forcing air in, and you can see the heat sink back inside there. Yeah, there we go. So those fans are forcing air mostly through the bottom. A little bit gets through the top, but mostly the bottom, and then it all vents out this way, which works pretty well. And there's a pretty good sized gap here, probably like 1/2 inch or a little bit more than 1/2 inch between the bottom. So, you know, sitting on a tabletop, let me move my rag out of the way. You can see there's a good gap underneath there, so you're not going to restrict airflow from this charger. Anyway, you can see you've got your I guess channel 2 and channel 1 connectors. These are 10S, and these are temperature. And up top here you've got 2 sets of controls. So this is you basically, what you do is you hit that button, and then you use the rotary knob and click to select certain options. This button is kind of an odd option. On some of the screens you'll have enough functionality where you can't do everything by rotating, and so you'll need to tab to hit the next thing, and then you rotate and select it again and rotate to, you know, change the values. And I'll show the interface in a minute. But yeah, that's it. I'll put back together again. I definitely like the fact that they've got 10-AUG wires back here. I kind of wish they would have used XT90s rather than whatever that is, because, you know, XT90s are super cheap and super common. So I had to make up a special cable just for that purpose. Used some 10-AUG wire I had, and they provided you with, or no wait, I don't remember now. I think they provided me with this piece of 10-AUG cable. But anyway, I've got a Meanwell power supply. So this is, you know, my big complaint, if you want to call it that. is that you need your own power supply. And I would have to say that that's pretty typical with a lot of chargers, that you need an external power supply to use them at their maximum capabilities. But with this, that means you could also plug it into your car battery or whatever to charge too. All right, next video we'll be walking through the display and a few things like that.